It was the weirdest, one of the most awkward races NASCAR has ever put on, but NASCAR is officially back, and they hit a home run today. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. It feels so good to say those words. NASCAR is back. It was trending all up and down social media all day long, but I just got done watching the return, the Cup race at Darlington Raceway, and it was a good race. I mean, I feel like any race would have been a good race just because we haven't seen real NASCAR racing in over 2 months, so really anything would have been great in my opinion, but today's race was actually surprisingly competitive for a Darlington race, especially with this high downforce aero package. Kevin Harvick ran off and hit at the end to get his 50th win of his NASCAR career. I kind of forgot he was closed in on 50. I still thought of Harvick as like 42, 43 wins. I forgot he's up to 50 now. Huge milestone for Kevin Harvick, a future Hall of Famer, no doubt. But while he ran off and hit at the end of this race, it was a very competitive race throughout with a lot of interesting moments and intriguing storylines. There are a lot of things to talk about in this race. I'm gonna try to contain myself a bit because we've got another race in less than 3 days. What I'm gonna do in this video, I'm gonna talk about the race, gonna talk about the winner, the top finishers, the storylines I found most intriguing. We're gonna talk about the racing product, what the rules package did for Darlington here in the hot sun. Rare you see a Darlington race in the middle of the day. You don't see that very often. We're gonna talk about all that. I'm gonna put the race on my groovy gauge. But before I get to that, I wanna talk about the broadcast and really just this event as a whole. Today's race was broadcast on the main Fox network. Mike Joy, Jeff Gordon were calling the race remotely from Charlotte, North Carolina. They had TV crews, cameramen, production guys in Darlington, South Carolina, on the ground. They had drones. Regan Smith was there as the one and only pit road reporter. I want to talk about the broadcast and the way NASCAR conducted the event as a whole. I think NASCAR did what they were supposed to do. I don't think they went above and beyond by any means, but I think NASCAR checked all the boxes they needed to check. There were photos all over social media before the race of NASCAR drivers getting their temperatures checked before they entered the facility. Pretty much, I think every crew guy, every TV guy, everyone I saw in and around the garage area and pit road had a mask or some sort of facial covering. Even the drivers, with the exception of Harvick when he first got out of the car to do that first interview, in which case they still had social distancing with the boom mic. Everyone had a mask or a facial covering, so that box was checked. There's no way NASCAR is able to guarantee a 100% secure, COVID-free environment. That's just not possible. But based on everything they showed on TV and everything I saw on social media, I think they did a pretty good job. The only hiccup was when they showed one camera angle that seemed to show a lot of the spotters pretty close together up in the grandstands. Most, if not all of them, appear to be wearing masks, and the angle is a little bit deceiving, but it does look like some of those guys are breaking the 6-foot rule. I don't know why the Fox broadcast chose that moment late in the race to show the spotters in the grandstands when earlier in the race we had shots of them clearly spaced apart. They just maybe came together a little bit as the race progressed. I mean, there is one spot up there that probably has the best view of the track. NASCAR did apparently radio them and tell them to spread apart, probably after that was showed on Fox, and some people took notice of it on Twitter, but at the end of the day, I don't think that's that serious. They all were wearing masks. They weren't right on top of each other. I don't think that was an infraction in any major way at all. So overall, everyone checked the boxes they were supposed to check. Of course, the safety matters too, but really, NASCAR is hyper aware of the fact that everyone in the country is watching them. And so NASCAR, more so than anything, wanted it to look good. I'm just telling you like it is. It's a business. NASCAR wanted to protect their image. They wanted to broadcast a good image of the sport, and I think they succeeded in that today. Everyone was wearing masks, good amount of social distancing. I thought Fox handled the broadcast really well. Of course, the event is taking place in an open air space, and the virus is known to not be as transmissible in open air areas like this. I don't think any of the drivers or crew members or competitors were put in an extra risky scenario. Like I said earlier, there is no way in the world to 100% guarantee that environment was completely secure, but I think NASCAR, everyone played by the rules, did what they're supposed to do, and again, the optics of it, which is what NASCAR cares most about, let's not kid ourselves here, looked good. Everyone had masks, social distancing. NASCAR clearly seemed to be putting care and effort into maintaining those protocols. So I didn't see any issues with it. I don't expect any blowback in the media for what I saw today. And that's NASCAR. That's the first one of their first boxes they want to check. Of course, safety and everything matters, but let's not kid ourselves. The optics matter too. Anyway, broadcast was fun. I thought the drones were a fun added element to it. The drone operators seem to be having the time of their lives. Man, I would kill for that job. That looks fun. Mike Joy, Jeff Gordon seemed pretty good in the booth. So overall broadcast, not bad, pretty decent. Now let's talk about the race. The main reason everyone tuned in today was to watch a real life NASCAR race once again. And It was awesome, especially those first two stages. A lot of drama, a lot of unpredictability, even before the green flag with Kyle Busch getting busted for failing inspection 2 times before the race started. He had to go to the rear. Everyone loves watching Kyle Busch drive from the back to the front, and he put on a show today. I'll talk about the winner really quick, and then I'll talk about some of the most notable incidents. Kevin Harvick gets the win. Like I said earlier, it's his 50th career Cup Series win, his first of the year. Because he was the points leader coming into today's race, he got first dibs on pit stalls. Grabbing that first pit stall right there at the exit of pit road definitely gave him an advantage on pit road. His pit crew was on it for most of the day. They had one bad stop that cost him a few positions, but they got that out of the way pretty early in the race, so he was able to recover from it. And really, when he came in as the leader, he rarely didn't come out as the leader. And while today's race at Darlington was a bit racier, I thought, than last year's race at Darlington, I thought you could pass a little bit easier today than you could last year with this same rules package. Clean air still mattered. Clean air was still very much preferred. So if you could jump out to the lead on those restarts, it was difficult for guys to track you down. We did see some passes for the lead today, but Harvick's car was good enough that I don't think anyone was going to be able to run him down. So when Harvick got clean air, he checked out, especially late in this race. But beyond that, Alex Bowman, who finished second, is a legit championship contender this year, guys. The last couple of years, he's made it to like the round of 12 or something in the playoffs, and we'd be like, wow, that's a really good season. This year, no. I think if he doesn't at least make it to the round of 8 in the playoffs, it's going to be a disappointment. That team has a lot of speed. All of Hendrick Motorsports had a ton of speed, but as we'll talk about in a few moments, some of their drivers did not take advantage of it. You got 3 Gibbs cars there in the top 10. Kyle Busch had a loose wheel late in this race, which hurt his finish, so he worked his way up back into that top 5, top 10, but did not get the finish that I think he probably deserved. Look at those 2 rookies in the top 10 at Darlington Raceway. I know it's a different track today than it was 5 years ago or even 2 years ago with a different rules package. I know with the high downforce package that this track handles a lot differently than it ever has before, but still, finishing in the top 10 in this race, especially with it being the first race back, no practice time, all that type of stuff, very little experience under their belts at this racetrack, that is extremely impressive. Coming into this year, the conversation for Rookie of the Year battle, because there are 4 very high-profile rookies going after it this year, a lot of the conversation was around Christopher Bell and Cole Custer, because Bell's with Toyota, Custer's with Stewart-Haas Racing, 2 superpower teams, organizations, manufacturers. Not as many people were talking about 2-time defending Xfinity champion Tyler Reddick or John Hunter Nemechek. Nobody was talking about Nemechek. He's driving for Front Row Motorsports. They're lucky if they're even in the top 25 in points. All of the rookie conversation so far this year, and it is early, has been about Reddick and John Hunter Nemechek, especially today. John Hunter Nemechek is out here exposing every single driver who's ever driven for Front Row Motorsports. A tweet from Jeff Gluck says that this is the first top 10 at a non-super speedway for Front Row Motorsports in 3 years. And this kid is a rookie. This is his 5th Cup Series start ever. I'm sorry, but every driver who's ever driven for Front Row, especially anyone who's driven for them recently with their cars the way they are now, I'm sorry, I'm looking at you. You guys better pick up the pace. John Hunter Nemechek has come out of nowhere, and he ran well today. He ran in the top 15, top 20, and again, top 10 late in this thing. What? Tyler Reddick, I don't want to dismiss him too quickly either, because he also had a great run at Phoenix, the race before the pandemic started, drove all the way up to 2nd place before he eventually cut a tire down and didn't get a good finish, but he impressed. He woke some people up a couple, 2 months ago. But today's race, he got the finish he deserved, so top 10s for those 2 rookies, extremely impressive. Right behind them, though, rounding out the top 10, not a rookie by any stretch of the imagination, but one of the lesser experienced drivers in the field, the least experienced driver in the field when it comes to these current race cars, Matt Kenseth finishes 10th. He hasn't been in a NASCAR race car in 18 months. He has not driven the high downforce package, the low horsepower package that was all the rage last year, all the top of conversation. He has not driven one of those. But earlier this weekend, he was quoted as saying he spent 15 minutes in the Chevy simulator. 15 minutes! No practice, no qualifying. 10th! I'm sorry, he's the GOAT. No, he's not the GOAT, but I love Matt Kenseth. He is really good, and he showed it once again today. I predicted he'd win a race at some point this season. I still think very good shot he makes the playoffs, to be quite honest with you. I'm even more confident about that today because his teammate Kurt Busch finished 3rd. Ganassi's got speed. The Chevys have speed. I'll talk about Hendrick in a moment here. Matt Kenseth impressed the heck out of me. But let's not stop there. Finishing 15th today, Ryan Newman, another driver, another big storyline coming into today. Of course, missed the last 3 races before the pandemic after that scary wreck at Daytona, but he was back today. His return, he did spin out, did have some sort of issue, and he did spin out late, but he drove back, recovered, and finished 15th. A top 15 for Ryan Newman in the 6 car is pretty noteworthy as well. So a round of applause to both Ryan Newman and Matt Kenseth, to the veterans of the sport, but both had very impressive return performances today. A quick look at the points. I believe this puts Matt Kenseth 34th now in the overall standings. Newman is still inside the top 30. So Kenseth, I believe he's only 80 points outside the top 16. Newman is like 47, 48 points. Well, they could still race their way into the top 16, but I think especially Kenseth is going to need a win. But top 30 is definitely not going to be an issue for Matt Kenseth. Now let's talk about some of the other major storylines from today's race. We'll go chronologically in a sense. We'll start with lap 1, turns 1 and 2. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. NASCAR is officially back because Ricky Stenhouse tries to go 3 wide or something like that, just squeezes himself. There's not room for that. Just back out. It's lap 1. We haven't raced in 2 months. It's lap 1. Stenhouse takes himself out, finishes dead last. He was remorseful in his post-race Twitter apology video, but Ricky Stenhouse, man, this is why Roush got rid of him. This is why he got rid of him, because he can't keep his car clean. His social or self-awareness on the racetrack and situational awareness at times is 0. I mean, I'm laying it on kind of thick. I like Ricky Stenhouse Jr., but this is his issue. This is his problem. This is why Jack Roush originally parked him. Remember, years ago, before he was in the Cup Series, he parked Ricky because he was wrecking too many cars. Ricky kind of figured it out for a while there, but bad habits come back eventually, and that was comical. Let's talk about the other big tragedy of the race. Jimmie Johnson, 7-time champion who's shown a lot of speed the first month or so of the season, ran great in that first stage. Top 5 car, was challenging for the lead and actually took the lead late in stage 1. Looked like he was going to win the first stage in NASCAR's return. And then on literally the final lap, he got into Chris Buescher, took himself out, wrecked the race car. I'm not going to lie, I was stunned for a moment there. I almost shed a tear. I'm not a big Jimmie Johnson fan or anything, but I want Jimmy to do well in his final NASCAR season, and to see him go from possibly having one of the best cars in the race with a real shot at winning this huge race back to then on a wrecker. Shocking. Some people, of course, are trying to blame Chris Buescher for the wreck. Guys, no, it was 100% Jimmie Johnson's fault. I mean, Chris Buescher was a slower car. He was the last car in the lead lap, but he never changed his lane. Jimmie Johnson, it's the last lap. It's the last. Like, why are you racing him so hard? He should have just lifted the moment he wasn't able to stay alongside Buescher. Instead, he let the car get tight, lost the nose, and just slipped up into Buescher's left rear and took himself out. It was 100% on Jimmie Johnson. Just no, kind of what I just had Stenhouse for, no awareness, no self-awareness here. It's the final lap of the stage. You had a gap behind you. I don't know why he felt like he needed to be alongside Chris Buescher there. I don't know, just a mistake, just an honest mistake. Jimmie Johnson's still great, but a mistake. And I think it was an example of the pressure starting to get to Jimmie Johnson. He hasn't won a cup race in almost 3 years, a points-paying cup race in almost 3 years. I'm not counting the 2019 Clash, that joke. He hasn't won a cup race in almost 3 years, and it is getting to him. It is clear. It was clear at the end of last year. It's getting to him. It is officially getting to him, and I think he's just a little nervous behind the wheel now. I mean, the same way Chase Elliott was nervous in 2018 when he almost threw away his first win at Watkins Glen. He was nervous because the narrative to that point is that Chase Elliott can't finish races. He chokes. He fails. He almost choked that race at Watkins Glen. Remember on the last lap, but he held on and he got the win. Jimmie Johnson is almost in that same boat. I think Jimmie Johnson now would make the same mistake Chase Elliott did if he was leading on the last lap of Watkins Glen today. It's not really a knock against Jimmie Johnson. That's just the way that it is. He's a 7-time champion, a legend of the sport, but he hasn't looked like that in 3 years. I think he's almost forgotten how, or he's probably in his head worried that he's forgotten how. I still think there's a very good chance Jimmie Johnson does win a race this year because that team is showing a lot of speed, but these mistakes are un-Jimmie Johnson-like, but we're starting to see it a little bit more and more. Think about the Roval in 2018. He made that mistake there. I just think the pressure of not having won a race in so long is getting to Jimmie Johnson. Whether he'll admit it or not, it's getting to him just a little bit, and that's what I saw here in this instance. He feels like he has to get everything. He's overdriving the car. That little pass on Chris Buescher to put him a lap down at the end of stage 1 was meaningless, and for him to be pushing that hard and pushing the issue to that extent, it's just a mistake. Just an honest mistake. But there you have it. That was one of the big storylines in this race. His teammate, William Byron, suffered a similar fate. Hendrick Motorsports had all 4 of their cars up in the top like 7 early in this race. And in fact, they were 1, 2, 3 at one point. But then Johnson fell out. And then in the second stage of this race, William Byron, they reported later it was a loose wheel, they believe, that spun him around, that put him in the wall and caused him to spin and collected a lot of damage on his right rear. So he had a bad finish as well. So 2 very fast Hendrick Chevys were knocked out of this race before halfway. Alex Bowman still, like we said, finished second early in the race. So Hendrick was still really fast. Chase Elliott had a top 5. But man, I was convinced. I tweeted that Hendrick Motorsports is going to win this race today because all 4 of their cars look like the 4 best cars in the field. unfortunately, two of their guys got taken out or took themselves out in some cases. So a tough break for Hendrick Motorsports. The crews and the drivers let him down today because the guys at the shop gave them stout race cars today. Hendrick should have walked out of this thing with a trophy from one of its 4 drivers, but is what it is. That's why we watch NASCAR, and that's why I said a few minutes ago, this race was unpredictable. That was one of the entertaining aspects of it. One other storyline, and it's going back to that rookie conversation a little bit. I mentioned that all the conversation these days is about Tyler Reddick and maybe to a slightly lesser extent, John Hunter Nemechek, because they've been the ones who have stood out these first few races of the year. Christopher Bell has stood out for all the wrong reasons. He came into today's race 32nd in points. I know he had mechanical failures earlier this year, but he also has wrecked in a race earlier this year, and he was caught up in messes at Daytona. He did not have a top 20 and still does not have a top 20 this season. And today was another example of Bell making a mistake. He just seemed to get loose and spun out all by himself. Got a little bit of left front damage perhaps, and then later on he had an issue with, I think it was Chris Buescher, spun Chris Buescher around. I'm not sure what was going on there, but either way, Christopher Bell, another bad finish today. He is still by far the worst statistical rookie in the Cup Series this year. And I don't know what's going on. The 95 car, in theory, should be a little faster this year than it was last year. They got a little bit more Toyota involvement. TRD is more invested in that car this year because Christopher Bell is their guy. They want Bell to do well. Bell's just been terrible. And a little bit it's been him, a little bit it's been the team, but you can't completely remove all the blame from Christopher Bell. Today it was all on Bell. They were running top 15 when he spun out. That's Christopher Bell's fault today. I think Christopher Bell is really good. I said this in recent videos when I was talking about silly season stuff, but I do think the low horsepower, high downforce rules package on the intermediate tracks hurts Christopher Bell because he's used to dirt tracking where the cars are super duper loose. These cars are not super duper loose, so I do think he's at a disadvantage there, but he should not be struggling this badly. He should not be wrecking cars as frequently as he is right now. He should not be spinning out making these mistakes the way he is right now. I mean, Reddick's not, Nemechek's not, and they're driving worse race cars than Christopher Bell is. Even Cole Custer, he's kind of just there in 18th every week, but at least Cole Custer is keeping his nose fairly clean. Christopher Bell is not. And I did not peg Christopher Bell, from what I saw in the Xfinity Series, as the type of guy to overdrive the race car and wreck himself. That's not what I saw from Christopher Bell in the Xfinity Series, so I'm shocked to see what I'm seeing so far in his Cup Series career. It's very early, but it deserves to be mentioned that Christopher Bell sucks right now. He's terrible. I mean, he's still outside the top 30 in points. I mean, Matt Kenseth might be ahead of him in points, and he's raced one race. I'm actually curious about that. I'm gonna look up the points right now. Oh, not quite. Kenseth is 12 points behind him after one race. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. I'm a Christopher Bell fan. I feel bad. I wanted Christopher Bell to do great this year, man. That 95 team teamed up with Jason Ratcliffe. I wanted them to be great this year. There's still time. There's still time, but man, not a good start for Christopher Bell. Those are the main stories, the main takeaways from today's race. I thought it was interesting that no Penske cars ended up in the top 10. You had Keselowski, Logano up in the top 10 for a lot of today's race, but when it was all said and done, Penske guys did not get the results I'm sure they were hoping for. Hendrick was fast, Chevys were fast, Ganassi looked good, Gibbs looked good but not great. Truex was kind of up and down today, but ultimately it was a Stewart-Haas racing car with really none of his friends anywhere near him in the final finishing results. It was Kevin Harvick standing out once again, leading that team to another victory. Kevin Harvick is really good. He is really good. If anyone ever had any doubt about Kevin Harvick, no, he's really, really good. Anyway, last part of today's race, I want to talk about the racing as a whole. I've kind of alluded to it a little bit throughout here, but today's race was pretty good. If I'm just talking about the race itself, ignoring the fact that the stands are empty, ignoring all the weird circumstances around the broadcast and around the event, it was a good race today. It's not very common that we see Darlington races run in the middle of the afternoon, but that's what we saw today, and maybe that's what it was because today's race was better than what we saw last fall. Passing was still difficult. That's always been difficult at Darlington, but with this package last year, it was definitely very difficult to pass, especially once the leader got in clean air. Today was a little bit easier, especially in the pack to pass, guys. In the top 5, we saw passes, top 10, we saw passes. Definitely easier to pass. Outside lane on the restarts was easily the preferred line, so that was a little frustrating at times to watch certain drivers who you knew had good race cars get freight trained for a lap or two. That was always hard to watch, had the Martinsville effect there. But this race was pretty well paced. The only knock on this race was the kind of dry finish. Last 40 laps or 35 laps or so went on under green and Harvick drove away. Other than the 2 laps or so on the restart where Bowman challenged him really aggressively, they were side by side. That was impressive racing. Aside from those 2 exciting laps, the last 30 laps or so were kind of boring, but I mentioned all the great storylines, the rookie drivers running up front, the veterans returning and having strong days, Harvick getting a milestone victory. Overall, not a lot of bad things I can say about today's race or the broadcast surrounding it. Everyone at NASCAR trying to make the most of a challenging and difficult situation, and I think everyone rose to the occasion today and put on a very solid show. Putting this race on my patented groovy gauge, I'm going to give Darlington, the first Darlington out of what, like 3 we're going to get this year, I'm going to give it an 80%. It was a well above average, I would say pretty good good, if not great race. Not amazing, not 100, not best race ever, but a very good race. And I was pleasantly surprised because I was a little bit worried. We'll see what the TV ratings look like this week, but it's pretty clear from how it trended on Twitter. More people tuned into this race than tuned into probably any races last May. I was worried that some of those new faces, new eyeballs would see a really boring, just follow the leader garbage race. And I was pleasantly surprised. That is not what they saw today. Most of today's race was entertaining. The final 40 laps were kind of dry, but up to that point, it was great racing. That's my final score. Let me know what you guys thought of it down in the comments. I'm hyped because we do this all again on Wednesday. That one's gonna be a night race, so cars will probably handle a little bit differently. Gonna be interesting to see how that changes the running order. Maybe some other teams show up a little bit stronger for that one. Definitely gonna be a different race despite being the same racetrack and the same week, but pretty awesome. Thank you guys for watching this video. That's all I've got. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. New t-shirts are available. They're available right down by the description of this video. If you're on mobile, if you're on desktop, they're all there. Or you can go to teespring.com/stores/estep. You can check out some of those new designs just in time for the return of NASCAR racing. Thank you guys for checking that out. And of course, big thank you to my Patreon supporters. Could not do this show without the support I get from all of you guys. Thank you for your continued support of me and of the show, especially during the recent hiatus. Your support means the world to me, especially during these uncertain times, so thank you a ton for supporting the channel. We'll be back with another video before Wednesday's race. Actually, there's a race Tuesday. The Xfinity Series returns Tuesday here in just less than 48 hours, so we'll have more videos up before Wednesday's Cup race, but we'll definitely have another video up after Wednesday night. Also, keep an eye on this channel. We're gonna have a pre-race live stream with some of my friends before the Cup race Wednesday, so Wednesday afternoon, keep an eye out on this channel. We'll be talking about this race. We'll also be previewing that race on that live stream, so stay tuned for that. A lot of good stuff coming. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for watching today's race as well. Hope you all enjoyed it because I know I certainly did. NASCAR is back. It feels good to say it. Have a great rest of your weekend, y'all.